This week, we launch our own podcast. You can listen to it through Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and Spotify. We'll be covering stories from around the world, similar to those you see on this program, but we'll get a bit more personal and candid with our guests and correspondents. So if you're on the go, whether on the train, driving to work, or just out for a run, give us a listen and make sure to subscribe. Search online for CGTN and the Heat podcast. The U.S. China trade war escalates. Beijing prepares to raise tariffs on thousands of American goods. And the United States threatens tariffs on all Mexican imports in response to the migrant situation along the U.S. Mexico border. Hello, I'm Anand Naidu, and this is The Heat. Global shockwaves after U.S. President Donald Trump announced plans to impose a 5% tariff on all imported goods from Mexico. Trump wants Mexico to stop migrants trying to illegally cross the U.S. border. Investors were already jolted earlier this month when Trump announced new duties on Chinese imports, halting any hopes of a trade deal. And on June 1st, Beijing is expected to raise tariffs on thousands of U.S. goods. For more on these developments, we turn now to CGTN's White House correspondent Nathan King. And Nathan, let's start with the trade war and a change in tone from Beijing this week.
Yeah, absolutely. A much more defiant and vigorous tone from Beijing. They have been very calibrated in their rhetorical responses to what's been coming out of Washington and accusations against China after the 11th round of trade talks failed here 3 weeks ago, and the U.S. upped its tariffs on about $250 billion worth of Chinese imports here from 10 to 25%. We do have those new tariffs going in from China over the weekend on $60 billion worth of U.S. imports, various levels of percentages. But you're absolutely right. Lots of very strong language coming from Beijing. The vice foreign minister just in the last 24, 48 hours saying that it was naked economic terrorism that the U.S. was waging. And let's listen to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in the last 24 hours too.
The United States has told lies repeatedly, and China has promptly debunked them each time. However, the U.S. seems to be very stubborn, or even obsessive, in repeating these lies. It seems the United States believes that the more it repeats itself, the more people will believe it, and the more it says, the more confident it will look.
Now, the reason for this raise in rhetorical language from Beijing, well, it does follow the putting of Huawei, the telecommunications giant, number 2 smartphone maker in the world, leader in 5G, on that entity list, which essentially could cut off its global supply chain within 90 days. We've really seen a ramping up of rhetoric since then, and no real planned talks, except for, Anand, the G20 meeting in Osaka at the end of June, where Xi Jinping, Chinese president, and U.S. President Donald Trump will both be there. The question is, will they meet, and can they lower the tensions and get some sort of trade deal back on track? But it's really not just about the trade deal anymore. Huawei's involved. It's finger-pointing about different styles of economy, and feelings are running high in both capitals.
And Nathan, the other big development, the president stunned businesses in Wall Street calling for new tariffs on Mexico. What's behind that?
Yeah, and you know, if you were China looking at this, you'd really be scratching your head going, is a deal with this White House? Because essentially, remember, U.S., Mexico, Canada all had a trade deal worked out going through the legislative process right now. And then suddenly, because of immigration and illegal immigration, Trump has said they'll slap a 5% tariff on all Mexican imports, hundreds of billions of dollars worth, about $360 billion worth, as of June 10th, if Mexico does not stem illegal migration. They haven't said exactly what they have to do. So this sent Wall Street into a tailspin. This sent a lot of people into a tailspin who basically were banking on the free trade deal for North America and others who are going to be negotiating deals like Japan, Europe, and of course China as well. Now, the Mexican government responded with Mexican president with a very sort of thoughtful letter. The foreign minister is here in Washington. We understand meetings are being set up. Maybe Wednesday we're hearing from the Mexican embassy. There is some negotiating time, but not that amount of time. In a little over a week, if Mexico hasn't done what Trump is demanding, essentially there's a 5% tariff. And it could get a lot worse. That 5% tariff is going to add another 5% every month until October the 1st. That could be 25%. That is huge. And I can tell you, from car makers to pork producers and everyone in between, they are saying to the White House, do not do this. And we understand that there are many members of Trump's administration also were against his decision.
Thanks, Nathan. That's CGTN White House correspondent Nathan King reporting.